Hello. We're road tripping again. I swear this is at least a couple times a week thing now. So it makes sense that I'm starting to do this a little bit more. Ironically enough, however, the last video that I made like this probably 2-3 weeks ago, I still haven't even posted yet. It's 2 weeks ago now. That's okay. But I was just kind of reflecting today, and it's been a really good day, like a really fucking good day. And one of those days where I'm very grateful. Like the gratitude is definitely visceral. Like not even so much jumping out of my skin. Like it's not the grand excitement of like everything that comes. No, it's just a very contented, very humbled kind of happiness. And I was just talking with a friend. I went up to her store, Golden Gatherings. They both like magnificent place, wonderful spot. Loads of local produce, local farmers, artists, tons of local artists. I include myself as well. And we were talking about an ex of mine who's a mutual friend, and I haven't spoken to him in years. There's still a lot of love felt there. Like there was no animosity at the end, nothing like that. It was more just very much recognizing like we didn't bring out the best in one another, and so we've had to take our separate ways. We've gone no contact in years since, and it was just easier that way to kind of prevent us from falling back into that same trap that we had been, and allow us to kind of go on and exist in our own separate ways. And it made me think, because this is like the beginning of our relationship was like 8 years ago now, and it had been probably 4 or 5 since he and I have spoken, which is perfectly fine. That's kind of how we anticipated it going, and we have a lot of mutual friends, so on occasion we hear about each other. We know we're good, you know. I got to see his mom once or twice in that time. She's a wonderful human. I love that lady. Anyway, just kind of circle back to the original thought here. I realized how much I have changed in such a short amount of time. Because whenever he and I had met, like I was very much like lost within myself. I had no idea where I was going in life. I was very freshly sober. I think I was like maybe a year clean at that point. Yeah, 8 years. I was about a year clean. And I was very much just like basically a new soul, like or a new human. I didn't have money at all. I was a single mom working. I wasn't even working yet, actually. Fuck, I was still on OW. I was tattooing here and there, like very spaced out in between. My mental health was rubbish, like absolute garbage. I had no real sense of self yet. Like I hadn't built that for myself yet. And the sense of self that I did have was kind of taken apart by other people's personalities that I'd surrounded myself with. Like I would surround myself with people that I really admired, and then I started, oh, beautiful fields. Sorry. I had started taking on characteristics of the people that I'd admired, and that's how I kind of went through my process of self-recovery. I started getting rid of the aspects of self that really didn't register anymore, and started kind of paving a new path, like paving a new way that made sense for what it is I wanted to kind of be, for what I wanted to represent myself as. And in the early phases of that, it really felt like I was, well, it feels like masking, because it is masking, but that's exactly what that was. But as opposed to like faking it till you feel it, it was really one of those like feel it till you feel it type situations. And to sit where I am now, like, I know who the fuck I am. Without a doubt. Without a shadow of a doubt. And I feel confident in doing the things that I like and the things that I don't know that I like yet. I love trying new things and putting myself in new places and meeting new people and connecting deeply. I love connecting deeply. And I've come to know these aspects of self with that about like after the relationship in question that I had spoken to my friend about just now, I took a long time to just kind of find myself and decide for myself what it is I actually wanted and what it is that was kind of preventing me from doing those things, and like ways in which that I was standing in it. It's a really busy road in that guy turn, like Lucy Chartle. And so, to bring a long story pleasantly short, I spent my whole life before that living for other people. Whether that was trying to meet other people's expectations or their standards, or I had felt insecure within myself, and so I would try to adjust myself to meet that person's standards. And now I'm in such a position that like I can be perfectly on my own. I mean, truthfully, I'm not, nor do I have to. I have not only the world's most supportive and amazing partner, like I met my partner, like I met the person I was and am meant to be with, and that is something that like I don't have words for. Sorry. He's a little groundhog and he was on a rock, like the Little Mermaid, just anyway. I have my partner. Like I'm not, well, I have community, and community who understands me and knows me to be me. Like even in my manic moments, even in the moments where life is a little bit harder than it ought to be. And so anyway, to kind of circle this back, I wanted to start this off as kind of an origin story. I really wanted to kind of, I don't know, I've reflected in these videos a little bit on my days as an addict and my days as like being homeless and going through those kinds of things. But I didn't super, I don't know, and I'm sure I'll do a couple of these at some point. Like there's all sorts of things I can get into, and especially like environmental aspects, so like family and, you know, relationships, both good and bad, the ugly, all of it. But this one I kind of wanted to go into a little more of like while I was in active recovery and starting to really try and find myself. A big part of that was with tattooing. Like I always knew I wanted to do something creative. I wanted to be artistic, and I knew I had this ability to do it. But while I was in survival mode, I really wasn't able to properly express my creative nature. Like I really wasn't able to, for example, while I was using in active addiction, I wasn't able to tattoo. I like to think I could, which is a dangerous fucking mix, as I'm sure you can figure out. Not every tattoo I've done has been remarkable. Not by far. But whenever I was getting sober, it progressively got better. With my art, like anything canvas even. Whenever I was using, I wasn't able, like, and if I did, like, it was very rigid, very just kind of like following paint by numbers type thing. Whenever I got clean and was working with my mental health, things started flowing more smoothly, but it was definitely a lot more fueled by those emotions. It was very much so fueled by, you know, that loneliness, that despair, and that sadness, and that injustice, and just everything that I could possibly think to feel, I started feeling it. And so, in turn, I wasn't as conscious a human as I wanted to, even though I was able to better express myself through my art. Does that make sense? Probably. Anyway, one of my biggest things, I think, throughout this process has been finding a balance between my creative endeavors and my lifestyle, because the two are not mutually exclusive, and they really do balance one off the other quite a lot. My whole thing, I've always said it, that my art is my therapy, and it is what keeps me sane, it's what keeps me grounded. And so I often I've come to recognize that anytime that my depression is creeping back in, one of the biggest means of self-sabotage is to hide away my art supplies or make them inaccessible. And one of the ways in which I do that is blocking off my studio. And I think that's a really good, like, almost visual representation of what that mental block used to be whenever I was held underneath the confines of survival mode or fight or flight or addiction. Like, there were so many times in which where what I'm sure could otherwise be considered like a writer's block or an artist's block, whatever. Like, it was a big mental block. But that block had also played a role in so many other factors in my life. One of the biggest, obviously, being my ability to tend to myself as a human. I wouldn't ever be able to schedule more than one thing per, at the time, week. Like, if I had one big thing a week, it was a busy week. And it was scary. It was daunting. I didn't want to handle it. I didn't want to do it. And that'd be like, you know, a doctor's appointment for either me or my daughter, usually my daughter. A tattoo appointment. I could not do more than one tattoo appointment per week. That was just big, solid no. I, like, even hanging out with friends, like, I couldn't put too many hangouts in one week, or I felt like there was too many things. One of the biggest things I started to notice as I truly started becoming healthy, like as the layers started kind of falling away and not just like having to revisit those things until you're healing it, like feeling it until you're healing it. When I realized that that was starting to kind of level out was whenever I noticed I was able to take on more things. Like, suddenly it was one thing a day. Like, that wasn't suddenly by any stretch. That was like years worth of kind of building to that. Then I could manage the one thing a day. The one thing a day turned into a couple things a day. And in the past 3 years, I'll say, is whenever I finally felt stable enough to be able to consciously handle more. And I became consciously aware that if I tried just that little bit, and if I stuck with that discomfort, that it would get to more things in a day. Now, now I'm at a point in my life where I can go to the gym for 2 hours in the morning, do a run up to a friend's house, drop there for a couple hours. I can go for a road trip and stop in at my friend's store an hour away and come back and know that I have a full day's worth of work there. Work for me isn't work for normal people either, so that's not like, you know, I'm going home and working 9 to 5. Like, no, I'm going home and I'm putting all this awesome fresh food away, and then I get to price out the stock in inventory, and there's a couple pieces that I need to make for a piece to be finished tomorrow. Like, that's not something that I ever in the past would have been able to do, but it's something that I remember even a year ago or 2 years ago, like in the last 2 years or so, I remember praying for the capacity to do what I do now. Like, I remember praying to be able to hold more space, to do more things. And I remember acknowledging as well that the places and things that I was manifesting then wouldn't have been able to work because I didn't have the capacity that I do now to be able to hold this space, this time, this ability, and especially within holding space for other people. That's something that I did not have a lot of back in the day. And now I'm definitely finding a lot more of. In the beginning of this journey, like, you guys may or may not know, I don't know how many of these things you've seen me do yet. My addiction started as early as 13. I remember, and like severe addiction. I went straight to opioid. I went straight to like numb it out as much as I could possibly numb it. And before that, like, because I always thought the addiction was the issue. And especially in the early stages of addiction, it's like, oh, well, I just started using things too young that I didn't understand. And I started, you know, playing with things that I shouldn't have. And that's what caused the overall collapse. And no, in reality, I was never working with a full deck to begin with. That was just not something I had the luxury of. I grew up to, like, I was born to very young parents. My mom was only 15 when she got pregnant for me, 16 when she had me. And my dad was, I think, 22 when I'd been born. It was a bit of a gap. Bit of a gap. And with the 7-year age difference between my parents, like, I never really considered how many things or how many aspects of my upbringing would be affected by that. Obviously, quite a lot. I grew up in Cornwall with 2 brothers. I had 2 younger brothers. Have 2 younger brothers. I'm still here. And the area in which we grew up in, like, because we moved around a lot. Like, we never stayed in a place for much longer than a year or 2. And that trend continued basically my whole life up until adulthood. And like the longest duration of time I'd ever stayed at one place was 3 years, and that was my apartment, like the first apartment that I had just to myself, and I was like 23, 24, and I moved out of that one, moved into a house on my own, stayed there for about a year, moved in with my dad, and then I'm in the place that I'm in now for over 3 years as well. And this apartment I've been in with my partner. But yeah, so then there was the environmental factor. There was the upbringing, unprepared parents, location, like the being in the ghetto of Cornwall definitely did not help, and I was there for quite a long time, on and off. And then we moved out here to what is a military base. I wasn't able to, I never fit in here. And I always thought that I was the issue. I really did. I was like, oh, okay, this is just not my vibe, not my space. Cool, whatever. It is what it is. And then I went hitchhiking. I dropped out of school in grade 9 or 10, and I went backpacking. I hitchhiked across the country. I first went to Ottawa, and I spent some time there in like homeless shelters and a lot of time on the street there as well. But the person I had met there, I went across country with, and he was an adult. Like, I was 15, and I lied about my name, about my age, about everything. I did not want to be Brooke. Brooke was also a missing person at the time, so it was just kind of better that I wasn't Brooke. And by the time that I had gotten to that point in my life, I was so confused. Like, I had no direction whatsoever, none. And any direction that I did have was led by people who were trying to otherwise manipulate me to fit in. And so I really stopped being able to trust, like a lot of big ways. The person that I went hitchhiking across the country with was, I believe, 20 at the time, and I was 15. He thought I was closer to 19. That was me. I'm gonna own that full on. That was me. However, he was a really troubled individual. He was really troubled, and that didn't get better after he found out what my actual age was either. Like, that just kind of continued on as is. There's a lot of abuse, a lot. Physical, emotional, mental, sexual. There was just nothing, no stone unturned, if we could be that plain. And that added to a lot of the confusion, a lot of the insanity, if you will. And then by the time that I kind of made it through that, like with the hitchhiking, because we were on the road for about 2 years. By the time I came back, I was 17, almost 18. And I had maybe a year living here where I was doing like my tattoo apprenticeship. I was doing okay. I was kind of getting sober from that bout. Whenever I was on the road, my drug of choice was, well, chemicals. Any fucking chemicals that I could have put in my face, I'd have put in my face. But for the most part, I really liked speed, MDMA, and meth. That was just my three of choice. And by the time that I got home and started getting sober for that, I was a very lost woman. I had no sense of self, no direction. I was 17. I started doing like adult schooling, and I was doing okay with that. My dad had given me an apartment in Renfrew, and I was doing all right. I was still struggling hard though, like really hard. And then I'd come back to Petawawa because the school had kind of not panned out. The apartment didn't go great, like it fell through. And so I moved into I was sleeping on the couch, which was in the apartment of my boss. The tattoo studio was also in his apartment. And I slept on the couch in the studio portion of the apartment. And that was where I met my ex-husband. We went out for a night. It was supposed to be a one-night stand. We went out for a night on St. Patty's Day. He was this innocent little, white polo, college boy, go-getter type. And he was just like Valley sweet. And he was so innocent. And I can very plainly say I very likely demolished that poor boy's heart. That is, we were young. By the time I was 18, we'd gotten together whenever I was 17. No, 18. 17. Anyway. Got together while I was 17. And during my 18th birthday was whenever we found out I was pregnant. It was about a week after my 18th birthday. And my fucking silly ass tried for it. We were young and in love, and I was like, I know everything. I've survived so much. I know how life works, and I know self, and I know nothing. I knew nothing. Anyway, 18 years old, and found out I was pregnant. I had my daughter 3 months before I got married. I got married 20 days before my 19th birthday. Thought I knew it all. My God, did I learn. Whenever we got married, I realized very, very shortly after that my husband wanted the white picket fence kind of life, and he wanted me to calm down. He didn't want me partying anymore. He didn't want me, doing all the things that I just kind of known to do. And like, I got comfortable. I really enjoyed freedom. I wasn't used to not having it, and I was not a good mom in the early years. Like, I really was not a good mom. Obviously, between like addiction, partying, sleeping around, like it was just, I was not a good wife. I was not a good human, and it didn't get better. I left that marriage, and that was probably one of the better things I could have done for myself, honestly. And that was mostly in part to just how different we were. Like, I wasn't allowed to burn incense in my house with him. And it wasn't even a smell thing. It was too woo-woo for him. I wasn't allowed to play with my tarot cards or like to read cards. I wasn't allowed to, like, anything that was even remotely like out there. He wanted me to have nothing to do with it. And obviously that's just very not who I am. Like, I was literally born into half of the abilities and gifts that I have. I didn't fucking choose that. Even still, on the other end of this thing, had I been able to live a very ignorant life, I would have preferred, like, I'm sure an aspect of me would have preferred that. With the whole thing, probably not. Anyway, circle it back. One of my biggest things, I think, that I'd ever done for myself, one of the best things I'd ever done for myself, was leave that marriage. I came home from working, and by the time my daughter was a year old, I was working 5 fucking jobs. 5 jobs. I was working at a moving company. I was working part-time at a call center. I was working weekends at my mom's tanning salon. I was still tattooing here and there, and I was working bartending and karaoke and DJ, like doing DJing at night. I had all of maybe 3 hours of sleep per night between being a mom, new mom at that, and working, trying to save up all this money and do all this stuff. And between all of that, my ex-husband would get every dime. Every fucking dime. He would pay our bills, pay our bills. And I would only come to find out whenever our bills got shut off, like our internet or our hot water, whatever the fuck would get shut off, that he didn't pay said bill that month. And that happened often. And so whenever I'd ask him, like, okay, well, then where the fuck did that money go? He's like, well, this new game came out, or like, you know, things are expensive. Groceries are expensive. Gas is expensive. What it came down to was beer and video games. What the fuck? Anyway, I was allowed all of $10 a day for a pack of cigarettes, because back then I used to smoke. And he'd pack me a sandwich for lunch. I worked for a moving company. I was a packer, and I'd help load. I was constantly running around. That's not enough. Anyway, beyond that was one of the many things that just did not work in that for me. One of the big things, however, that really just kind of like, I think shifted whenever he and I separated, was I was able to kind of go through that chaotic, what I thought I needed. Like, I was able to go back to the partying and back to whatever. I ended up deep in addiction, but it was necessary. And I hate saying that, like, oh, one of the worst things that ever happened to me was so necessary. But yeah, every single awful thing that had happened to me, sexual assaults, the beatings, like many beatings, the constant holding my head just slightly above water to take sips of air, like every single bit of it was so necessary for me to kind of find the space that I'm in now. And like, I've always known that, like, you know, everything happens for a reason. There is no accident. There is no, like, no, this is all on purpose. But I think now, being at the other side, because it's not just, right, super slow drivers. But now it's not just a matter of I'm sober, or I'm better, and I'm this and I'm that. Now it's a matter of I'm a totally different person. Like, even the foundation, like the foundation is the only thing that I hold in common with the person I once was. The basics. The fact that collectively, our mother was this young thing who just started off, and our father was this young, irrational, crazy person that had to really work through his anger, and that together we collectively went hitchhiking, and we had this addiction, and we had these abusive partners, and we had these, you know what I mean? That is the only thing I have in common with my past self, is our past. Like, I in no way am the same person that I was. And I thank Source every fucking day for that. Like, I thank Source for the fact that I'm able to, without even question or hesitation, look at my schedule, see that I have 3 things on for that day, but be like, okay, but yeah, that goes in between this thing and that thing. Yeah, I can take that. I can do that. And know fully well that absolutely I can handle that, because I acknowledge, like, if it's something that I say I can handle, then yes, I can fucking handle it. If it's something that I know within myself is going to take more than I'm able to give, then I just won't do it. Whenever I book a week of absolute chaos for humble beginnings, and then within that say, okay, yeah, and I'm gonna fit in a road trip here and a road trip here and a road trip here because I gotta do this, that, and the other. I look forward to it because I'm so excited for the drive. I'm like, okay, cool. I get to listen to my audiobook at extended period. Like, come on. When do I ever get to listen to like 4 consecutive hours of my audiobook and not be interrupted by my husband and daughter? Or like, when do I get to like, or on another note, in the past, when have I been able to know, oh, I'm going to be sober during the hours of, you know, between 11 a.m. to like 8 p.m. without, you know, kicking myself silly because I want to join, without having to lose my shit because it's like, I feel like I need something, or I'm missing something, or I need energy drinks, or caffeine, or I need this, I need that. You know what I mean? Like, without that unrest stirring in my mind. That is such a gift, to be able to consciously move through my day and be able to consciously handle these upheavals. That is such a gift to me. And I'm so grateful for it. And now I'm moving into a point in my life where I get to share that with other people. Like, I get to help teach and connect and show other individuals that when there's a will, there's a fucking way. And I carve this way out. I choose this. I need this. On days that I'm not able to show up to meditation, or like I do group meditation on most Mondays, and I do yoga every Tuesday, or I try to. Today's a Tuesday. I'm probably not the maybe to yoga. But on that note, I'm able to not follow through on some of those things, and it's not because I'm hiding out and lazy. It's because I've realized I need an adjusted practice for that day. And now I'm not afraid to give that to myself. And that helps. That helps a lot. Anywho, I am home. This has been lovely. Venting, chatting. Just talking about what seems and feels like nothing. But I feel like it's taken a lot off my mind and a lot off my chest. So I'm okay with something. However, I hope it's been beneficial for you guys too. Or that at the very least, you enjoyed today's, it's not really a TED Talk, is it? A brook bramble? Can we do that? Can we have a brook bramble? Oh, we are. Anyway, more to come, I'm sure. Lots more adventures to be had. And I've even got another road trip this week, so you might just hear from me again. Doodles.